Well, good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing? It's rather hot day, isn't it? It's rather hot, and I am absolutely sweating buckets. I've got plenty of cold drink on the go. Hope you are all making sure you're hydrated and keeping safe as well. Um, all I can say, it's hot, and I'm you can probably tell I'm sweating bucket loads, so I apologise for that. Also, want to stay on the start. I'm on call this weekend. Got called out last night and didn't get back till 1:30 this morning, so I'm a little on the tired side. So, apologies if I seem a little bit on the slow side. Just the way it is sometimes. This heat doesn't help because I can't sleep when it's hot either. So today we're going to be talking about pruning, and this came in from a question from Ian Beddoes, who's hopefully out there tonight because he started this. Before that, we'll go through what I've been up to over this last week. But first, let's see if anybody is actually out there. And yes, right from the beginning, Ballycillian Allotment Man is out there. Good evening, Richard, and everyone. Good evening to you. Adrian is out there. Good evening to you. Turbo Streamers out there. Good evening, Ballycillian and Adrian. Good evening to you. Idaho Gone Girl, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Who else have we got? Philly SBB is out there. Good evening to you. Anna Jones is out there. Good evening to you. Margaret Peacock is out there. Good evening to you. Grow Veg is out there too, and he says, hit the like button, guys and girls. It really helps get the show noticed by the YouTube gods. I completely agree. Please do hit that like button. It does help with the algorithm. And if we can build the audience, we can make it into something really good. Jenny is out there. Hello, everyone. I hope you have all not melted. Indeed that. Graham Arnold is out there. Good evening to you. I've just skipped a load by accident. Who else have we got out there? Hargrave Gas, evening, everyone. What a hot day. Yeah, indeed that. Don't forget the thumbs up. Indeed. Digwell is out there and he says, on the slow side, Richard, how would we know? True. That is very true. Beatrice is out there. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. I think that is it. Please do keep leaving your comments. Let me know you're out there and join in the conversation. Don't be afraid. It's lovely to hear from you. So, what have I been up to over this last week? Just looking over at my notes quickly so I can remember. Oh, let's get rid of that comment. Don't need that on the screen. What have I been up to? Well, I think it's safe to say the heat has been the main thing. So there's been a lot of watering and a lot of trying to keep on top of everything, but only in the cooler parts of the day, the morning and the evening. So that really has been the basis of what I've been doing this week on. As I said, I'm on call this weekend. I got called out yesterday morning and last night. So I spent a bit of time in the afternoon / evening in the garden at home. We're getting mare's tail pop up in our front garden, which is becoming really annoying. And I'm trying to have to start trying to get rid of that somehow. It's one of those things. It happens, doesn't it? I've also got it's I don't know what it is. It's like a climber. It's popped up in between. Well, actually, it hasn't popped up. It's been there for a while, and it's in this sort of little piece between a concrete patio and our neighbour's fence, and I'm trying to get rid of that. Proving really difficult. It's too thin because it's only about that far wide to try and dig out the roots. So that's becoming real difficult. Got buddleia as well I'm trying to kill off as well. So a lot of things I'm trying to kill off at the moment, but I don't use weed killers. So I'm using a lot of hot water to try and do that. I've been sowing some carrots and some French beans. And that really sums up what I've been up to at home. Once I finish this live show, I haven't been down to the allotment because I got called out, didn't get back till, as I said, 1:30. By the time I woke up this morning, I was too hot to go down to the allotment, and I just spent the day sort of chilling out. And I'm going to the allotment once this live show is finished, providing I don't get called out. So, yeah, that's what I have been up to over this last week, really. And there'll be more on the podcast tomorrow. Over to you guys. Let me know what you have been up to. Turbo Stream, if the models are correct, then next weekend is going to be 40 degrees C plus in the southeast and the Midlands. It can't be too hot. I will not be able to cope. 40 degrees C just sounds too hot. I think I will melt. I honestly do think I will melt. I don't do well in the heat, as you can probably gather. I'm a cool weather person. I don't get on well with the heat. Um, Living 10 minutes away from the sea, we do get a bit of a breeze here, which does make it a little bit more tolerable. But at the same time, I just still don't do well with heat, which is really a real struggle. I don't know about anybody else out there. I've got to have a swig of coffee, a swig of this. Don't know about anybody else out there, but like I say, when it is this hot, I like to try and do the gardening in the cooler parts of the day. First thing in the morning, late in the evening, when it is just a little bit cooler. Jenny Hullett says snow baby peas, beans, and beetroots all sown today. We have a shaded cover to stop them drying out. My sweet corn is not growing past 30 centimeters. Any ideas? They are all watered in the sun and good soil, etc., etc. Funnily enough, I think my sweet corn is doing exactly the same and not really growing at the moment either. I suspect it is just due to the lack of water in the ground. Probably needs a obviously I know you say you have been watering. I suspect what it might be worth doing is adding a mulch, get some grass clippings, put that around the base, try and retain some of that moisture, and it might just push that sweet corn on to grow a little bit better. That's my thoughts anyway. I suspect they're just drying out a bit too quick. Turbo Stream says, this week I sowed beetroot and carrots, harvested broad beans, peas, and beetroot. I would love a sea breeze. Not much chance of that here. You know, we took the dog for a walk on the beach yesterday, and it was absolutely lovely just getting that real nice breeze. So I'm probably only about 10 minutes walk from the sea here. So I do get a bit of a breeze, but not enough. Not enough. What I need is aircon. I absolutely need some aircon. Beatrice says it felt hot even at 6 o'clock this morning. Yeah. It's a struggle to sleep in this heat as well, which is always difficult. Ian says, good evening all. You need some matchsticks. Still need that rain. That is not in the forecast for some time. Matchsticks. I want to burn out these weeds. The trouble with that, it might set fire to the fence. So a little bit difficult. But yeah. Grow veg. I enjoy the heat, but I sweat like a leaky bucket. So do I. As you can probably tell. It's like I need guttering. I'm sweating buckets. I mean, this shed is insulated, so it does stay pretty cool if I keep the door shut. It is warm today. Turbo Stream, I'm out above 23 degrees C. It's 27 here today, 29 degrees C tomorrow. Does anybody ever, slightly off topic here, does anybody actually keep a record of the temperature actually in their gardens? I used to try and keep a record of it, but I've not done that lately. I've just got myself a new gardening notebook, and I'm thinking of trying to register the heat every day. Idaho says, I've been pulling weeds, dealing with hydrophobic soil, removing spent pea plants, transplanting strawberries, chard, and winter squash, sowed Tanya's pink podded beans. Somebody's been very, very busy there this week as well. Hydrophobic soil, must be a nightmare. Indeed. Listen, didn't get a lot done this week as I work outside with no shade. So when I got home at night, I've been exhausted. You know, I will say it is most important that you do keep yourself cool and look after yourself. And I'm with you. I'm completely with you on that. Grow Veg says, I was pickling tomatoes and cucumbers in the poly house at 6 o'clock and it was red hot. Well, yeah, 6 o'clock this morning in a poly house. I was saying the same about my greenhouse. I need to get in there and tidy things up a little. Just too hot. It's just too hot to even attempt to do that at the moment. I'm going to look forward to when it cools down. But we've been lucky this year, I feel. We haven't really had much of a summer until this real heat wave. We've had nice weather, don't get me wrong, but not the real hot weather that we would expect. Facebook user says, not looking forward to working this week as a gardener. I suspect that might be Ian, but I could be wrong. Let me know if you are watching in the Facebook group. Unfortunately, it comes up with Facebook user due to privacy things. You can set it differently. But if you could just let me know who you are at the end of the comments so I can address you personally and then be able to do that a bit better. Hargrave Gas, I've been away in Cardiff since Friday. I'm really worried about how dehydrated my plants will be when we get back later. Now, that's interesting. That's very interesting. It's something I obviously do worry about. I find, generally speaking, if your plants are in the ground, they can tolerate it a little bit longer. Certainly a week is fine without watering. It's if they're in pots that they become a bit of a problem. Now, on the podcast tomorrow, I am discussing about growing in pots and things along that very subject. In fact, I've actually got a company talking about a design of a pot that I think does help a lot with that, keeping things hydrated. Turbo Stream, I picked a few wallflower plants for the open day today, potted them in fours to raise a few quid for the allotment funds. Hopefully somebody brought them. Hope somebody brought them too. Hopefully somebody brought them too. Yep, it is Ian. I thought it was. Steve, I've been recording temperatures in the garden for the last couple of years. Highest this year is 28 degrees C today and yesterday. Average temp for this month for us is 18.7 C. I knew if there was somebody who's going to keep records, it would be Steve, funnily enough. He's very, very organised, Steve is. So, yeah, 28 degrees C is the highest this year. What's the highest temperature, Steve, you've ever recorded in your garden? Because you're not far from me. I know that. Digwell says, I mix water gel crystals in with much of my soil compost. So if it does dry out, it soaks up water quicker. I've also found biochar to be very good. I don't know if anybody else has used biochar, but I've had really good results in adding biochar to my potting mixes and something I'm trying to do a lot more of. Jenny says, I have a lot of wasps at the moment, but no sign of a nest. I've been watching them catch various flies and bugs. They are serious ass predators. They really are. Yeah, they really are quite a joy to watch. Or is joy the right word? But they are serious predators. And he says, a lovely sunny Sunday to you, Richard, watching from the garden. What are you going to do about watering your plants here as it hasn't rained for nearly 2 weeks? So I'm not overly worried about the lack of rain. My water butts are getting a little bit low, but I've got so many of them. I've got to recount every time I go for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 water butts in total. So I have plenty of water. I find if I do it right, that will last about 3 months. What else have we? Who else have we got out there? Kate Spanners joined. Good evening to you. She says, evening, Veg Army. Richard Golden has joined. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream says, I planted the butternut squash plants this week. The soil is very damp still under the leaf mulch. Mulches do work. Indeed, mulches do work. I'm always, I feel I'm often repeating myself in the podcast with how good I feel mulches are. But since I've started using a mulch, they have really transformed how well a garden will hold on to moisture. So lawn clippings, easiest mulch if you can get hold of it. Easiest mulch is lawn clippings. And Wright says, totally agree. After a day working as a gardener is exhausting in this heat. Not much getting done once home. Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me. I'm a refrigeration engineer by trade. So when it gets hot, we get busy. And I'm out in the sun all day driving around. I do have aircon in the van, granted, but on rooftops and things like that, you feel the heat. And it's sapping, isn't it? The heat is harder, I feel, to work in than the cold. Grove Veg says, I've been trialing water gel granules this season. I'm thinking of buying in bulk for my compost mixes. It's expensive, though, for what it seems to be glorified wallpaper paste. If it works, it works. I mean, I'm always wondering, is water gel crystals, are they natural product? Are they from, um, are they biodegradable? Are they going to cause any damage? That just me being a little bit, I've got my podcast head on, I guess is the way to say it. I know I'll get those questions coming if I say things like that. But like I say, biochar for me is what I've started using. Turbo Stream says the highest I recorded during hot weather was 35 degrees C on my patio, but I don't routinely collect the data. And Steve says 28 degrees C is the hottest so far. I've only been recording for the last 2 years. Maybe it might be that next week. Next week does look to be far, far, far too hot. Far too hot. Like I say, I've said this earlier on. If anybody out there, your garden can wait. You've got to look after yourself. Don't get me wrong. I know the plants need watering. Water them in the cooler parts of the day. Restrict yourself to what you can do if it gets too hot. As you know, we've got a dog, and we're sort of treating that based on her as well. It's forcing us to stay indoors. She can't go out. She can't go on walks. So we make the most of it. Where was I? And Jenny says, I'm a bit of a vampire, only work in the garden at dawn or dusk in this heat. Indeed. And on that note, I think I've got to have another swig of this cooling, refreshing drink to cool me down. Or try and cool me down, I should say. Turbo Stream, we've had a few weeks of 30 degrees C plus in the past couple of years ago, so I'm getting used to it slowly. Yeah. I find if you work in the heat, drink loads in the morning as you soon dehydrate. And I've had heat stroke twice as not enough water, but this definitely helps. Funny enough, yeah, this is actually my point. I've suffered from heat stroke when I've worked on the allotment way too many times for my own good. And I don't get on really with wearing hats. I've got my old farmer's cap, as I call it, that I do wear. But on a whole, I don't wear hats. So I come out of that. I get burnt. I don't get burnt. I just get very hot. I sweat bucket loads. So I always make sure now I drink loads of water and take it easy. Been going to the plot at 6 in the morning and revisiting at 8 in the evening. Indeed. Yeah, indeed. That's what we are trying to do. Right. So I'm going to move this on to pruning. As I said, this is a question that came in from Ian Beddoes, and I haven't seen Ian in the chat tonight. So this is going to be a bit of a difficult one. Now, what I've done, I've broken this up into sections because I don't want it. I want you to sort of help me out with trying to get my head around what we have to do for pruning, and so that if Ian watches, as he was the person that answered this question, if Ian watches on the replay, he can then get a better idea of what we have to do. So the first section that I've got is, why do we prune our trees, our bushes, particularly our fruit bushes and what have you? I'm going to bring my notes over, my whiteboard over, because that's going to be, I think, a little bit easier. So the first thing that I've got is, why, as I said, why do we prune? And usually I put straight away, probably the simplest way to answer this: remove any unwanted branches, dead, diseased, or damaged, particularly. Next, after that, I've got to maintain the shape, and also because it promotes fruiting. So why do we prune? I'm going to ask that to you guys. Why do you prune your trees and your bushes? Jenny says prickly heat is horrible. Indeed. I've never, have I think I've had prickly heat. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Like I say, I'm trying to really push home, everyone. Take it easy. Your gardens still be there tomorrow when it's cooler, and so on. Turbo Stream, I never venture out after 11 a.m. in the hot weather. The garden can wait, exactly. I'd prickly heat a few years ago, never again. Indeed. Belly Ceiling says, I prune to increase airflow. Now, that's a very good point, actually, because one of the tips that I've read about, particularly with pruning apple trees in order to promote good fruit is that people say, well, the old-fashioned way. I don't like this term, but I think it summarizes it up. The old-fashioned term was that you would prune an apple tree enough that you could throw a cat through the trees and it wouldn't hit any branches. Now, I really don't like. I know that is meant to make it stick, but the idea of throwing a cat through a tree is not very nice. So I would rephrase it to allowing a bird to fly through your tree without hitting any branches. And this is, again, you increase the airflow to increase the amount of fruit that you might get. Ian says, prune fruit trees as you can prune to fruit buds, so the growth goes to the fruit, not the new growth. Now that sounds a very, very complicated answer, so I'm going to need a bit more information on that. By the way, I should have said the phone line is open if anybody does want to call in. Phone number is 07307 135 174, and I'm just going to pop the link up in the chat. If anybody does want to zap in, the link is going up in the chat as well. Stuart Jackson is there. Sorry I'm late. Time just runs away in the garden. Glad to see you back out in the garden, and I hope you're having a good time. Let me just move my chair. I'm leaning over. The chair's just sort of sliding further and further back. So, yeah, why do we prune? Why do we prune? For me, because I specialize particularly in fruit trees and fruit bushes, I always want to prune, first of all, to remove any dead or diseased or damaged branches, any branches that are going to be where I don't want them, like overhanging the neighbors or where people might be walking and it might cause damage, and also to promote fruit. So they're the first things where I go. Rebecca is out there. Good evening. Sorry I'm late. The heat got to me. Make sure you drink plenty. I'm saying this time and time again. Make sure you drink plenty. Idaho, I prune fruit trees to keep them smaller. I thin the branches to allow airflow. I thin fruit to get better quality fruit. That's a good point, actually, about thinning fruit. That's something we'll probably tackle a bit later on if we get time. I only have gooseberries and raspberries. It can be confusing. Indeed, it can be confusing. And this is where I'm hoping everyone is going to pitch in and try and simplify the terminology to make us all understand it a little bit better. Jenny says, I prune my apple trees for good airflow, and I find that the tree drops less in June. The saying I know is to allow a pigeon to fly through. My fan apple trees prune to the frame, so a bit trickier to prune. Now, fan training, that's funny. In the fan training or step over apple trees or espalier apple trees, that falls into to maintain shape, but that's a whole complicated way of pruning these trees. I class fan trained and all that stuff as being high level pruning. That being said, on my original allotment, I did plant some step over apple trees, and I want to start trying to produce step over apple trees once again because they were so great. For those that don't know, step over apple trees is that they are literally what they say. They are a tree trained and pruned to be so low that you can step over them. Kate says, I've inherited some apple trees, not very tall, maybe 5'5" at most height-wise, but I found the branches spreading out are being weighed down with fruit. It's dragging the branches over to nearly touching the floor. So what I would be inclined to do there, you've either got too much fruit on there that they're becoming weighted down. You might want to thin some of those apples, just remove them. Usually throughout June, a fruit tree, this is something I wasn't going to hit upon until later on. Usually throughout June, you get something called a June drop, where a fruit tree will drop a load of its apples, for example, in order to allow the other apple trees more space to grow. So you might want to replicate that and remove some. I would also be inclined, if it's a young tree, you've inherited it, so I don't think it is. to remove the fruit, but as it's inherited, so it's probably not a case like that. So you might want to support the branches with some canes and strings and stuff just to help it out. Digrat says the water gels are made from polymers and copolymers. They are natural and break down in 5 years. The RHS recommends them. There we go. That's what I was wondering. Answered yeah there. So they are natural and break down. Fine. Do I prune those right back after they finish fruiting? So that probably is a segue onto the next question that we have. Well, the next thing that I've made a note of when do we prune our fruit and apple trees? We'll get into that in just a moment. But for your apple tree, you don't prune them back right after they finish fruiting. Turbo Stream says, I prune back this year's fruiting spurs on summer raspberries, leaving the new shoots to fruit next year. That's also something that's going to come up in a bit. But here's my question for those that don't know. Here's my question for you, Turbo Stream. How do you know what spurs have fruited this year to know not to cut them? Jenny says, my raspberries label long gone, fruit summer and again in the autumn. So when do I prune? It's so tricky as all the growth has the fruit, but it's all at different heights. Help. So this was something that was going to come in a little bit later on, but we've had 2 questions along this line. So certain fruit bushes, and I'm going to use raspberries as an example, they can be either primo cane, and I forget what the other one is off the top of my head, but basically they are the fruit on the first years, which are, in the case of raspberries, usually your autumn raspberries, or in the case of summer years, they fruit on their second year's growth. So what I mean by that, if they're autumn, the plant will pull up a new shoot and that will fruit in its first year. If it's a summer, it will pull up a new shoot and it won't fruit until next year. Hopefully that sort of explains it. But Jenny, the fact that you're getting 2 harvests out of your raspberries tells me that what you've actually got there is autumn plants. What autumn raspberries tend to do, they put an early load of fruit up and then they will go, and then you will get your normal autumn ones. But you do need to cut them down at some point, otherwise they will get reduced in the amount of fruit that you get. Autumn raspberries are planted to the ground after this year's fruiting spurs. Fantastic. So that's coming back to what I was saying. Autumn raspberries, ones that fruit in the first year, we cut those right down to the ground. I usually do it in the winter, but there we go. Turbo Stream, this year's fruiting spurs will die back after fruiting on summer raspberries. It will be obvious which are the ones for next year. You say it will be obvious, but if somebody has never grown it before, how would you explain it to them? So I'm going to go in and sort of say the first year growth, the new growth, is going to look green, whereas the second year growth is going to look brown on the stem. That's how I would try and define it. But Ballycillian says, I tie a piece of cord on my raspberry spurs that fruit, so I know which ones to cut down. And Steve says that's a good idea. This is what I was trying to get across, is that how do we make it easier for those who maybe have never gardened before? Andrew Norris has joined. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Now, when do we prune? This is my next question on my crib sheet. So most of my trees, particularly, and most of my fruit bushes, canes, etc., I will prune in the winter when the plants are dormant. Now I do that usually in the winter. There are some exceptions which I'll get into in a moment, but I do that because during the winter all those trees, all those bushes have lost their leaves, they're dormant, so they can tolerate a good hard hacking a bit better. But also because there's no leaves, you can actually see the branches a lot better. You can see if there's any dead branches, you can see if there's any diseased branches or any damaged, any crossing branches. So much easier during the winter. Now, I did say there was an exception, and this is where it comes into the stone fruits. My peaches, my cherries, my apricots. I don't grow apricots, but those stone fruits. Those, unfortunately, we do have to prune in the summer. The risk is with those, they can get a particularly nasty fungal disease if pruned in the winter. So I like to leave the stone fruits just to be pruned in the summer. Now that's how I do it. That's how I, when I choose to prune my bushes. Of course, there are times, and I mentioned this earlier, about when, let's say I've got a privet bush out the front of our house that I'm trying to get rid of. But of course, I have to hack that back with the old hedge trimmer every few weeks, which is a sort of pruning because it's getting out of hand. So that's not winter or summer, it's when it needs doing. Turbo Stream says next year's growth will be green and the old spurs will start to die back and go brown. They will completely die back in the winter. Exactly right. This is for summer raspberries. Some blackberries fall into this category as well. Trying to think. What you got to do when you buy your I don't know, just something I've just thought of. When you buy your fruit canes, take a note of what the varieties are and go and do your research as to when they are. However, if like me and a few others I know, we've inherited raspberries on our allotment or in our garden, not so easy to just know what the varieties are. So that does make things a little bit more difficult. I say that there'll be something in the pictures that will summarize that. Jenny says, I've off out with my twined tie-byes on fruit and raspberries. You are balanced next to me, doing it now. So if I'm not sure, I can ask. There we go. This is what I mean. We can help somebody while they are actually doing the work that we are talking about. So just quickly, I just want to remind everyone to please do give us a like. Please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a follow. Please do subscribe. Please do click the bell notification to know when we go live. I will repeat that again in a minute, but it does help, particularly with the algorithm, to get ourselves noticed and grow and add more people to this great group of knowledgeable people. So when do you prune? That's the asking. When do you prune? Andrew says, that's a great tip, Turbo Stream. I'll be tying my spurs in tomorrow. There we go. So, yes, we're talking about this, and it's making it great, isn't it? Talking about tying in our spurs that are fruiting to know what we can prune. Beatrice says, I have a plum tree in its 4th year. No plums yet, but it is getting long, whippy branches. How much should you take off in one go? Oh, this is a good question. I'm going to throw this out to everyone else to answer. I would be inclined to, when you say long whippy branches, are they going upright, these long whippy branches? If they're going upright, then you can take it back just to get it in shape. 4th year plums, no fruiting. Not an easy one to get fruit from plums. But once you do start get to plums, you will not stop. I would be inclined, I would say about 25 to 50% of these long whippy branches to cut off. But you might need to, if it gets too thick, you might need to reduce the amount of branches at the same time. Good question, though. Good question. I didn't think I'd get stumped so early on. So, again, we'll throw that out there. Anybody out there that grows prunes and can help with this question. Beatrice does say, yes, long, straight up branches. I thought that was going to be the case. So, yeah, 25 to 50%, that should be fine. Over here in Idaho, from Idaho Garden Gal, obviously, we prune in February and spray with dormant oil. It's organic before the buds break. That's the important thing, getting there before the buds break when the sap isn't rising. I think, anyway, it's so important to do that. Turbo Stream, the raspberries will show you which are the previous year's old ones. Good point. I prune my cordon apple trees in early August and again in winter. I know some professional gardeners do two prunings. I've never done it myself, as I say, winter except for my summer ones, but I know professional gardeners do. Um, I've yeah, um, cordon. So cordon apples. Just explain if I get this right. Cordon are a single branch growing up the centre, aren't I? I told you I was going to be a bit slow. Um, somebody to explain cordon. Cordon. I prune my apples in dormant months, but I will start pruning the fan apple pruning late summer and start tidying their new growth. I really want to make another fan apple tree again. But yeah, dormant months again. On my plum trees, I prune a third off horizontal branches, and for height, I prune so I can reach the fruit. That's a very good point. Prune so you can reach the fruit. Pruning plums from Ian. I would prune back to the plums in a late summer and take the heavy wood off as they can snap and damage the tree. There we go. Ian's a professional gardener, so I thought he might have some ideas on this. It's getting hot in here. It's getting really hot in here. Sorry. Margaret says, this time of year, the long branches on the plum tree can get the chop, leaving more goodness for the growing fruit. That's what we do anyway, and we've had loads of plums on a very small tree. Have you got a plum tree? I never knew you had a plum tree, Margaret. I have to have a look at that. There we go. Toby Spoon, I pruned my gooseberries last winter, cutting the old woody stems out. Hardly any fruit this year. Do gooseberries fruit on the old wood, and how long before they fruit on the new growth? So if I remember correctly, gooseberries do fruit on 2 and 3 year old fruit. Sometimes they can get very congested. I know this is a problem that I have with a lot of my gooseberries. They can get very congested. So they do benefit from a good pruning quite often. Quick swig coming up. Oh, I did warn you. It's hot, so I'm going to be drinking a lot of water today. So the next question I've got is the tools that we need. Now, I think what I'll do, I'll bring the overhead. Oh, let me get rid of that. Sorry. There we go. I haven't taken the stuff off, so I haven't set myself up very well for that overhead camera, I'm afraid. So I've shown this to people before. This has been one of my favourite garden tools that I've ever had. I keep this in my pocket at all times because it is a set of pruners on the go. And because it's in my pocket, it's always ready and available. This one actually is a little bit broken, so it doesn't close properly. So I can't, I'm trying to find a new replacement for this. They don't make them anymore. It's a shame because that was a really good one. But if a branch is, I've got another set of secateurs as well, just your standard usual secateurs. But if a branch is particularly difficult, I use these ones made by Fiskars. I know they're looking a little bit like they need a bit of oiling, agreed. But what these ones do is they've got a ratchet in them. So when something's really big and hard, I can sort of release the handle. It goes back to full, but the jaws stay in place, which really helps to get prune or to cut some of the bigger branches. Now, of course, if it gets too big, then we need a saw. Again, these ones are okay, but there are better saws on the market, to be honest, or my chainsaw gets used from time to time as well. And I also do have a little pruning knife as well, which again, I mean, this is actually more grafting knife. From taking prunings to take cuttings, it's a good choice. So yes, secateurs, loppers, saws, they're the type of knives, they're the type of things I use to prune. Where were we with the comments? Margaret says, yes, the trees at the bottom left of the garden, left of the yucca, show you on Wednesday. I never knew there was one. I never knew there was one. Jenny says, am I right in thinking you can train a plum tree for branches to grow bending down so easier to harvest? I'm sure I've seen string tied to all branches to them and pegged down. Any fruit, yeah. So any fruit, really, you want to sort of get the branches to come down to make it easier for harvesting anyway, but also it produces better fruit. I think the idea that was floated around Christmas was to tie 2-litre bottles of water to the trees to bring the branches down. And right, Gordon's a single stem trees growing on dwarf root stalks at an angle of approximately 45 degrees against support wires. Yeah, that's what I thought. So let's say this is a tree, it's just a single stem growing up like that, and it grows at an angle. There's some beautiful ones I can think of, and tied in against support wires, and it produces fruit all down this cordon. String not strong auto spell at its best. Indeed, I got the idea. Andrew says, here is a useful tip. We paint our fruit tree trunks white with a lime wash. This slows the tree warming up in spring and delays the buds opening until the threat of frost has passed. I never thought of that, never heard of that. So that's an interesting idea. TurboStream says, 2 of my gooseberries are completely overwhelmed with any other plants. So I dug one out and replanted in my fruit area and took cuttings for spares. I've got exactly the same problem. If you heard, was it last Sunday? I mentioned it on the Supporters Club podcast. I had exactly the same problem. Some of my gooseberries are just getting overwhelmed, and currant bushes are with all the trees, all the weeds and stuff. And right, you can therefore grow several varieties in a small place. Indeed, that's with the cordons. I love them. I gave some of those ratcheting pruners. I love them. They are great, aren't they, the ratcheting pruners? They really are great. Highly recommend them, especially if you've got issues where you can't squeeze down so hard. You just take that pressure off it and make life a lot easier. I have ratcheted screwdrivers, great for my arthritis as well, as they help apply the pressure. Exactly my point. Exactly my point. Yes, you can peg fruit trees down as it slows the sap and makes more fruit. So there we go. There we go. So quickly, let's go through the photos that have been sent in this week before we get in to how to prune. And I want to be on this one. So first of all, Idaho Garden Girl, she has very kindly been sending in her second photo from the same position on her garden, and this is what it looks like this week. This is something we're going to try and put together towards the end of the year to see how our gardens change throughout the year. Now, Kate, we haven't had many photos sent in this week, but Kate has sent in quite a few. This is of a lettuce, which looks absolutely fantastic. Nice, luscious and leafy growth. We're eating lettuces at the moment. It's going down very well. And she's also harvested her first of her onions. And I believe it's the first time she's ever grown onions. She has also had a shot of a polytunnel, which looks absolutely beautiful and tidy and organised. French beans are starting to show. How very, very lucky are they? And I think they're in the polytunnel, so they're getting off to an early growth and an early show anyway. Looks absolutely beautiful. She's also getting some tomatoes show up. Funny enough, we've been harvesting tomatoes this week, should have said, including our yellow tomatoes. Hanging baskets are fantastic for tomatoes, I've got to say. Kate, now, she put this picture up in reply to what we were talking about earlier about the inherited raspberries or plants that we have inherited. I've had this myself. I don't know what varieties they are, and I found them very difficult to control the weeds. So I was discussing whether I start again or what do I do. And Kate is having the same dilemma. Some of the raspberries that she inherited, they're getting a bit chocker with weeds. And does she start again or what? Debate we are are playing off in our mind. Now, finally, Steve, aka Digwell Green Fingers, he's had a package arrive. He's a member of my supporters club, and these are the seeds that we sent out this month. Nice collection, I've got to say. Oh, I think so anyway, but I would. Good lot of seeds, I think. Good lot of seeds. So there we go. Photos that have been sent in. They've either been posted in our Facebook group, which under the Veg Grower Podcast, you will find on our Facebook group, or they've been sent to me directly either via social media or email richard at the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Quickly, let's have a look from the comments. From Garden Focused, gooseberries are formed on branches which grow in the previous and older years. However, branches older than 3 or 4 years will become productive. Like I said, 2 or 3 year canes are good enough for that. There are some currants also that fall into that category where the canes need to be 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, and then they won't be as productive. Again, I could sit here all day and go through all the different things on that, but I think the best thing to do is when you buy your plants, take a note of the varieties, swipe up labels and everything, and learn how to look after that particular variety. In says to Idaho Garden Girl, your allotment looks amazing. Idaho says, well, Kate, your lettuce looks lush. Mine is bolting in the heat. Idaho says, thank you to Ian. Andrew says, nice looking garden, Idaho. I'm a bit envious. Thank you so much. Beatrice says, fab photos this week. Great to see other plots. Please do keep sending your photos in. Please do send some videos in as well. Turbo Stream, for unknown raspberries, I would lift and replant in the autumn and cut out any old spurs that are obviously dying. This is a debate, as I said, I am having. Now, anyway, how to prune, the big question. This is what it's all really about. So, as I said, I usually, first of all, just take a look, and it depends on what I'm pruning. So if I'm pruning a tree, I'm always going to be looking first, usually in the winter, for any dead or diseased or damaged branches and remove those first of all. I find that just easiest way and the safest way, because those 3 things, the 3 Ds as they're called, they've got to go. They've really got to go. So there's no point having them, leaving them on the tree. So they've got to go, cut them off, and off they go. Now I cut those all the way back to the main stem if I can. If I can't get to the main stem, then I just do it to past the damage or the disease, etc., etc. Then I look for any crossing branches and try and remove one of those so that they are not likely to rub. And then I will just stand back and see. So in the case of an apple tree, as we said, a pigeon being able to fly through it is what we're looking for to allow plenty of ventilation. So for that, that's obviously tree specific. But if we get into our fruit bushes, autumn raspberry canes, I just cut those all down to the ground in December time, I guess. All down to the ground, and off we go. If we're looking at, say, our summer raspberries, just fell off the table there, our summer raspberries, again, looking for those brown stems, and I cut those back right down to the ground in that same sort of time, leaving the green stems. What else have we got? Now, if we are cutting back branches to just for pruning sake, shall we say, what we want to do is go along the branch and look for a spur. So what I mean by a spur is usually you'll see where there's like a little, almost like a bud or the beginning of a bud. We want to cut after that bud so that it's safe. That's how I'm trying to explain it. I'm hoping somebody's going to run to my rescue and explain it a bit better than that. As I said, working to half one, I'm very slow today. I think we've said that one. Jenny says, I have a pawpaw tree. It is young, but I need to research how to prune it as it is growing well. I have no advice on a pawpaw tree. I'll be straight up, but yeah, go and have a look. Digwell says, great stuff in your garden, girl. IGG. Hi, Ernie, long time. Thank you, Digwell. I will have to catch up later. I have 6 weeks of gardening to catch up. See you all next week. Sorry. No worries, Stuart. I'll let you off this time. Good to see you today. I learned that you should be able to throw a hat through the middle of an apple tree. Yeah, this is a hat is probably a good one. A pigeon flying through it. The old term was throwing a cat through the tree. But I think that was just said to try and make it memorizable, so people can memorize it better. I'm just putting a link up if anybody does want to zap themselves in on the chat. Alternatively, 07307 135 174 is the number to call in. Another swig coming up. Apologies, I am drinking a lot tonight. I know. I don't care. We need to. It's still very, very warm in here. The computer, I don't know if anybody can hear the computer, excuse me, whirring away in the background as it's pulling in a lot of power. It's hot in here. It's hot in here. Just checking through my notes. Something I like to try and do when I am pruning. So if I'm using this one and I go to cut away branches on one tree, and they might be perfectly safe and no damage or no disease or anything. I like to try and sterilize my tools before moving on to the next tree. I got a sterilizing fluid that I just spray on so I'm not transmitting diseases between tree and tree. But if you are pruning out some diseased, damaged branches, then I highly recommend that stuff after cutting out the disease, because what you don't want to do, cut out the disease so you're going to save your tree and then cut something else and spread that disease back into that same tree. Sterilizing fluid is pretty easy to get to. This is an example. It's Jay's fluid. It's as you can see, well-used bottle here. That's one example of something that you could use. That is actually designed for gardening tools, that particular one as well. But they also do it in smaller versions. Whew, it's getting warm. It's getting warm. I'm trying to... I can't believe how hot it is now. Is it me or is it getting warmer? It probably is me. Beatrice says you have to find a shady spot and broadcast from outside like you did that week you were on a call. Yes. That might, yeah, I don't think it will help though, because this shed is actually pretty cool. It's just so hot outside, and this went down to the beach. It's probably the only cool space around it. I need a swimming pool. That's what I need, a swimming pool, and I'll broadcast from the swimming. I'll wear a t-shirt, don't worry, but broadcast from the swimming pool somehow. The great thing with the software I use is that we can take it out on the road. One night, one weekend, I might actually go live from the allotment, because it's fun. It's fun, isn't it, doing it live? No need for a sauna in that shed, hot and steamy. Is it becoming quite obvious that it's hot in here? Hot in here. It certainly feels like I'm sweating bucket loads. Just looking at the image, I can see, yeah, I do look rather wet. I'll try and do our best. We try and do our best. We distill brandy each year. If the stuff is not so good, we use it to sterilize our tools and for mosquito bits. Well, I've never heard of that, but I like the idea of not letting stuff go to waste, and brandy being used as a disinfectant. Very original, gotta say, but I like that idea. Richard, you need a fan for some air movement. Please don't struggle. Finish early if you need to. You are more important. I'm all right at the moment. If I have a fan on, it will create a lot of noise for the microphone, which I think is just annoying. So I do actually have a fan down here, but we don't worry. Sweating cobs, as we say in Birmingham. Don't worry. If it does get too much, I will say so. I'll just make sure I keep drinking. We've only got about half hour to go, so we're 2/3 of the way through tonight anyway. And I think we have gone haven't I? Am I back? Am I back? There we go. Wound seal is the only other note that I've got, which wound seal is this. It's good stuff actually. If I make a cut in and I put it on that cut in still on the tree to seal that wound, a tree will normally do that with sap anyway. That's the role of sap. But there is stuff on the market that replicates it and does a similar thing, and in order to protect that cut from getting any diseases in it as well. So that's the final thing on my notes to get through. Anybody else got anything they want to add or anything like that? Ballison, which if you're under pressure, don't force yourself to do a full show tonight. Your health is more important. Don't worry. If it was that bad, I wouldn't keep going. Don't worry. I'm not that silly. I will make sure I look after myself. Don't worry about that. But as much as I say the show must go forward, I've still got to do what I've got to do. I clean sap off pruning tools using tomato ketchup. I've never heard of tomato ketchup, but I guess vinegar-based makes sense. I sterilise my pruning tools between jobs using a bleach solution. There we go. There we go. Toby Snoom says, don't overheat. I can recommend a fan. I do have a fan down here. I'm just choosing not to turn it on at the moment. I've been trying to get him to furnish early every week. Never works. Oh, I'm sorry, Digwell. I'm sorry, Digwell. No, but I will keep going. I will keep going. I will keep going for as long as I can. You know me, I'm very dedicated to this live show. I think it's safe to say. What's Thomas doing? What a true professional. I do my best, but don't, like I say, I'm not gonna injure myself at the same time. Another swig coming up. It's not like I can ask Amanda to bring me a drink today either, because she's not here. Nicola says, I'm late and we'll catch up the rest. I missed out watering and mount a large amount of tubs. That's quite convenient that you mentioned that, Nicola, because on tomorrow's podcast, I'm actually talking about growing plants in pots and how I look after them. I've recently, this week, managed to find some discount plants in certain high street shops. I've got some raspberries and some currants, and I've been putting those into pots and tubs. But with this hot weather, I'm going to be sharing how I try and make the watering a little bit better for myself. I think most of you will probably know that a mulch is going to be featured quite heavily as always, because mulches work. Toby Stream, how and when do you prune blueberries? Mine is looking a little leggy with little fruits. So I've never had to prune blueberries, in all honesty. I asked this same question many years ago to, I can't remember who I asked. But the answer I got is that you try and do as little as possible with blueberries, other than maintain shape. But if they are looking a little bit leggy and little fruits, then perhaps it is time to start cutting off some of the older branches to try and encourage it to grow some new ones. That might be the way to look to it. Cut out some of the older branches, try and reduce the rest down, all the other branches down by 50%, and try and get some shape to it. That's what I think. Over to you. Jenny Hullett says Digwell can take charge. Over to you, Digwell. You can take charge, apparently. Nicola says, I've got loads of irrigation hoses, just need to set up. You know, I'm so glad in my greenhouse I've set up this solar powered irrigation system, because it really does take the pressure off me when it comes to watering. I hate going into the greenhouse when it's hot anyway. I ain't got to worry about that in there. It just does it for me. And you know, my plants really do benefit from it. I'm a big fan now of trying to set up irrigation hoses. If only we could get them to run off water butts a lot better than what we have on the market. I'm not a fan of using tap water. One, because I think it's such a valuable resource, and my wife doesn't like spending money on bills, especially water bills. But two, seems a shame we got rainwater falling from the sky. Um, Trying to set up a proper irrigation system is tricky though. I threw my blueberry very early in spring, pop the prunings into water, and they root really easily. Now, actually, yes, very, very, very good point there. Something that I meant to have mentioned and didn't write down in my notes. I'm a big believer in trying to take. So, rosemary is probably a good example. Sometimes rosemary gets a bit leggy, gets a bit woody, and we do need to give it a good hard prune back. But I don't like to waste the plants. I do like to try and harvest some of those prunings. If I'm not going to use the rosemary in the kitchen, that is, and try and make some more cuttings to get some more plants out of them. Um, yeah, definitely a way of multiplying the amount of plants that you have, as well as adding new plants to the stock, refreshing them. There are very few side shoots to produce fruits, so we'll prune this year. Is that blueberry? Blueberry. Oh, Jenny says, I prune my blueberry very early spring, pop the prunings in water. They root really easily. Did I read that? Did I read it? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I told you it was going to happen at some point. Where are we? Where are we? Not really pruning, but it is pruning. Before you take the side sheets off, cord and tomatoes, always tie them in or string them first. That's a good point, actually. I didn't really think about tomato side shoots for this demonstration. So on tomatoes, so you get your main stem growing up and you get your branches coming off. And sometimes between the two, you get another little branch seem to come out. Now, the advice is to always remove that little branch, because you're not likely to get any tomatoes on it. They're not going to produce fruit. They're just going to sap the energy out of the tomato plant. In warmer climates, they will actually plant those side shoots back in the ground or in water to try and get a second crop from them. Here in the UK, we don't have a long enough summer for that to be worthwhile. But it's certainly something that you can do. But as Digwell says here, tie them in first with spring. That way they're going to be secure. If you prune first and tie in and make a mistake, you will not have a new leader to train in. So there you go. There you go. That explains why he says that. I've got to have a swig of this coming up again. Beatrice says, I will have to try that at Jenny. I think that was talking about the blueberries. Indeed. That's better. I have a blueberry and pink lemonade blueberry babies. Just look forward to them growing up and lots of fruit. So we gave up with our pink lemonade blueberry a few years ago because it hardly ever produced any fruit. And this seems to be a common thing I hear about the blueberries. I don't think it's down to pruning. It just seems to be the pink lemonade don't always produce a huge amount of fruit. So please do, Jenny, share with us how you get on with that blueberry plant and how well it works out. As always, it's good to hear. Good to hear how things get on with that. Right. I'm going to say this again. I think it's going to be the third time I said it. Please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a like. Please do give us a subscribe. Please do give us a follow. Please do click the notification to know when we go live, even though we go live at the same time every week. I'm saying it more and more because I know the more often I say it, the more people will do it. Jenny says coffee grounds as a mulch and they are super happy. Yeah, tried that, but yeah. UK is one of the few countries that take off tomato side shoots. As I know other countries do, but they tend to try and plant them to get more plants. But we have that suffering where we don't get long summers here, that we have to try and get the best out of our plants. Bally Sin says, I always plant the side shoots off the tomatoes. They grow faster than mother plants and give a crop in the Polytunnel in Belfast. So it can be done then. There you go. It can be done, but it does need that polytunnel because it does need that longer growing period. Again, it's a good idea, I think, if you can do it and it does work, to get 2 plants from one sowing. After the show, take a running jump into the sea from Turbo Stream. I've got to go to the allotment after I'm done here and go water down there. So, but I think the sea will be cooling. I used to. I've still actually got it. I just haven't set it up this year. I had a hot tub just the other side of the wall here, the shed wall. And when I finished this live show, you would jump into that hot tub, and it was lovely. And it actually cooled you down as well. Haven't set it up this year because cost of living. We figured the electricity is probably going to be too expensive to run it this year. But then where we were walking yesterday, we were looking into. We're walking along the beach, and a lot of the houses that back onto the beach have swimming pools, and we were looking into them and going, yeah, love a swimming pool. Love a swimming pool. We'd take up the garden, but I would love a swimming pool. Ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen because I know Amanda would not want to pay for the heating of a swimming pool anyway. Has anybody else got any other questions to ask about pruning? There you go. Roxy's back. Yep, 7 o'clock. I thought they might be back. Anybody else got any other questions to ask about pruning or anything like that, or anything they want to add? If not, then I'm going to start talking about this this thing that I mentioned with Kate and the trouble I'm debating on our allotment, where I have a collection of fruit trees, currants, red currants, black currants, gooseberries. I think there's some raspberries in there as well. And it's an area I've inherited. Obviously, I've got bad couch grass on our allotment, and it's particularly difficult to try and keep this area underneath these trees and around that area weed free. The ground's really compacted. I've never really done much with it, to be honest. And I'm in 2 minds about just ripping it out and starting again, getting some new currant bushes and etc., just to try and get rid of those, get rid of that couch grass. But then I'm thinking, if I just mulch it and try and keep on top of it, I could be throwing away plants that are perfectly good and healthy. Has anybody else, particularly on allotment, inherited plants that they've kept or not, or had a similar problem with, and how did they deal with it? Turbo Stream, better seed in the brown filthy canal not far from me. Our seed's pretty clean here, to be fair. I grow side shoot tomatoes and bring in any side shooted tomatoes and slow plants into my dining room end of October time. They finish growing inside. That's an idea. That's a very good idea. I didn't think of that. What a great we are. It's only been a few months since we complained about the cold, damp growing. It's typical Britishness, isn't it? We complain about the weather. We're never happy. We are never happy. We want that. I think when we are happy is the spring period, when it's warm. When it gets too hot like it is, we don't like it. I think half the trouble, though, it's the humidity more than anything. When I was in the Caribbean, St. Lucia, I was dreading it before we went there. Where did we go? It was on honeymoon. It was Amanda always wanted to go there for our honeymoon, so I was like, yeah, I'll keep you happy. You know, these things that we have to do for our partners. I can say that because I know she's not watching. I was dreading how hot it was going to be in these places. And the Caribbean, I was surprised. Although it was hotter it just didn't feel it because of the humidity. I recommend try to start again. Take a few cuttings in a new patch. I will dig up the old ones this winter, I think. I tried to clear around the old gooseberries, but failed. This is honestly what I'm thinking. The trouble is all these plants are really, really productive. They're just a bit difficult to try and keep on top of. So what I'm thinking, I could take cuttings or buy new plants. Hence why I got some bargains in some shops, and get those up to be as productive before I remove them. That's where I'm currently thinking. Ian says, just had my kohlrabi for my dinner and definitely will grow more. It's very easy to grow. Kohlrabi, it's an interesting one, isn't it, kohlrabi? I grew it for first time a couple of years back and I was really surprised just how well it tasted and how easy it was to grow as well. I thought it'd be a bit like a turnip. I'm not keen on turnips. I find they're okay, just a bit like, what's the point? But kohlrabi really did, as long as they haven't gone stringy, of course, which is down to watering. Kohlrabi was definitely one that I was really impressed with and will be growing. Did I send kohlrabi out this month or is it next month? I know they're in the supporters pack at some point. We like a good amount. We like a good amount about the weather valley. It's the British way. Indeed, it is the British way. I think somebody said when reviewing my podcast once, the comments on the weather is either delightful or annoying, depending on how you stand on it. And I completely agree with that. It's just the British way, isn't it? We do like to discuss the weather, and if you're a gardener, you like to discuss the weather even more. Oh, I'm so glad I brought that drink with me today, in all honesty. So we've got just over 15 minutes to go. I think, have we covered everything on pruning that everybody needs to know? Or anybody else has got any other thoughts as well? And there may be people who are watching to the replay of this. Please do add your comments down below to share your thoughts on pruning as well. Yeah, not got much more to add to that. Not got much more to add to that at all. And of course, if you want to call in 07307 135 174 is the phone number, or you can zap yourself in on the link going up in the comments. Now, of course, that's only available if you are joining us on this live show at the moment. But yeah, like I say, this area where I'm really struggling to get into a good looking shape, and it's been a battle for a number of years. Our biggest problem is the couch grass. I find with the annual beds that because I'm constantly able to empty the bed out and run the hoe through it, add mulch easy and add compost easy. It's very easy to try. It's easier, I should say, to keep on top of the couch grass. But this area where all the fruits are, not so easy. Not so easy at all. The ground's quite compacted as well, which doesn't help. I've tried removing it in the past. Couch grass being couch grass just comes back in a matter of seconds. Literally does feel like it's waiting for you to turn your back and it's back there. Couch grass is probably my bane of my life. Absolute bane of my life on the allotment. Oh, that's better. That's much better. Oh, dear. No more comments come in at this moment. The couch grass is a bane of my life, and just constantly running a hoe through these areas can be very, very, very difficult. And I'm always worried about also damaging the trees or the bushes that we do have there. I find it really hard to even contemplate getting rid of trees or bushes or any plants like that, unless they are dead or dying. And that's partly why when I inherited these pots and they were on there, I've kept them going. I think the bottom line is what I've got to do, and it's obvious to me, standing here, what I've been doing with the currant bushes. I've been trimming it down to get the grass, and I've been loading layers of cardboard, which should last about a year, the cardboard. just to suppress some of that couch grass, that is weeds. And then what I might also have to do, get some wood chip. If I can find somewhere I can get some wood chip from and throw that on there. A couple of years ago, we had a delivery of wood chip to the allotment, but we don't get it anymore, which is really, really annoying. Turbo Stream says, maybe you need to dig around your fruit bush then. I've self-seeded blackberries growing through mine. Yeah, we get the same. Self-seeded blackberries growing from my gooseberry bushes at the moment, which I'm cutting back and trying to get rid of. But it's not easy. All the thorny ones are there. I've got to find a really tough, long-handled gloves or something in the winter. Ducks eat couch grass. They indeed do eat couch grass, but we're not allowed ducks on the allotment. Excuse me, not allowed ducks on the allotment, I'm afraid. Bully Soon says, with my gooseberries, I cut the bottom out of old buckets, bury them to just above soil level, then planted the bushes in them. That allowed me to hoe the soil and keep the weeds. That's a good idea. That is a very good idea. Very good idea, Ballysillian. I like that. I might well be doing that in the not too distant future as well. I really like that idea. Really like that idea. I have been a hack I was told actually is using two pots. So you bury one pot in the garden, then have another plant in a pot that slides into that pot as well. That way, particularly good with daffodils, I'm told. That way, when you want to remove them, you just pull them out the pot. But I'm always worried about leaving plastic in the ground. But I do like this idea. Cut out the bottom, leave like the lip above. Makes it easy for strimming, makes it easy for keeping the weeds down, hoeing, etc., etc. That might be what I do if I plant new plants and I get rid of these inherited plants. Which actually, if I get rid of the inherited plants, should give me a bit of a better working system. Like this idea a lot. Thank you very much, Ballysillian. Very, very, very good idea there. Very good. Beatrice also says, great tip. Indeed. By the way, while I've got you all here, I know some of you are members of my supporters club. I know not everyone is, but people who are members of my supporters club, if you haven't heard, I've got you a discount code for Haughty Wool. Log into your account on the website, have a look on the discount codes. If you are looking to use Haughty Wool, which make the hanging basket liners out of wool, etc., etc. There was what I remember. Somebody asked last week when I mentioned Haughty Wool about the chemicals from the dipping and whether that's safe. What they told me in communication, they thoroughly wash the wool when they receive it anyway, so there is no trace of the chemicals in theory in that. Digwell says use a terracotta pot instead of plastic. I agree. Turbo Stream says, can you dig them up and clear the ground and replant? That is an idea. That is an idea I am contemplating. Definitely an idea I am contemplating. Somebody else suggested, I think it was Steve from Seaside's Life, is it? You know who I'm talking about. He suggested he wait till the winter, dig them up, shake all the compost off, and then replant, knowing that compost is going to be free from weeds. That might be another idea. I'm just very much in the debate in that at the moment. It's definitely something to think about, isn't it? Definitely something to think about. Right, that was the last of my liquid refreshment gone. So I'm sure we can make it last 10 minutes now. If not, we will have to call it short at the end. Well, I think the pruning conversation is all done. I think we're all ready to go. And we'll probably go over the pruning again nearer the winter time when it's more the time to do it, I think. I know it was Ian who asked this question, and typical, he's not here when we were answering it. But I think, yeah, we'll go over that a bit more over in the winter time. Next week, Next week, as you can tell, I've got my whiteboard ready. Next week, I want to know what you are growing or harvesting right now. So, are you harvesting anything right now? And are you planting any seeds? Are you planting any plants? Let us know that with a few photos would be great as well. Um, lots that are going on at the moment there. Thomas Stream, I want to move mine anyway as they are next to the shed, so I'll attempt to do mine up this winter. Yeah, I think it's best to move plants in the winter anyway when they're dormant, like what we were saying earlier. Toby Stream says next week's topic, next week's subject, as I said, what you are harvesting / growing now. And the week after, I want to know where you get your plants from. So a few weeks there. Anne Wright says, we have left raspberries in situ this year, meanwhile cleaning new area slowly this summer, and we'll move them over in the autumn winter. That's what I'm thinking. That is exactly what I'm thinking of trying to do, clear an area before moving them over, and then clearing the area back. I'm pretty certain that's what I'm going to be doing. Very certain. I mean, the cardboard that I'm laying down in the area, I just realised where I did have summer raspberries, but they've all died now. I've laid some thick layers of cardboard to hold down all those weeds and everything. Yeah. I need to do a plot tour too. I need to do a plot tour too. I missed the last one. That'll probably be coming up in about 3 weeks' time, a plot tour as well. And I will do one. I will do one for my allotment as well. I keep saying I'm going to film it, just never get the time to do it. Or rather, not so much the time to film it, the time to edit it. Anybody who makes videos will know that it's a lot of time involved. In getting all the things set up and ready to go. Which is why I've pretty much stopped filming so much at the moment. I just don't have the time. It's a shame because I've got so many good ideas for the videos. But it is time prohibitive. But I can't think of that word. Time prohibitive. You know what I'm trying to say. Just check. Yeah, that phone is on. I thought it was. I put it on charge earlier. Jenny says, I struggle to edit a photo. Yep, I know exactly how you feel there. There's only so many hours in the day. I think we need another 8 hours in the day. And then there probably still won't be time. Or perhaps we should go down to the 4-day working week, as being talked about. A lot of gardening is a long game. Indeed. And Digwell says, I didn't know you had an allotment, Richard. Never seen it. I know. I do feel a bit like I do have an allotment. I have a garden, but nobody ever sees it anymore. Purely because, as I said, I'm working 5 days a week and plus on call and weekends. So when I'm on the allotment or in the garden, my time is very limited. And I'm a bit of a, when I make a video, I can be a bit, I want to get all the shots. And for example, if I'm planting out something like garlic, which probably take 20 minutes, if I'm trying to video it, that takes 2 hours to video and then another 2 hours to edit for that 20-minute job. Lifted my onions and zabroon shallots today. How long do you let them dry before putting them into storage? Good question, Graham. Thank you. Coming in right at the end to rescue me there. So what I like to do, I harvest my onions when they are flopped over, depending on the variety, of course. What I will then do is try and shake as much of the soil off as possible and then place them in my greenhouse for a week in order to dry them out. After that week, I then cut the roots and the tops off and then place them on the shelf in the greenhouse for another week to make sure they are all fully dried out. So overall, about 2 weeks. That's how I do it. There's probably going to be a lot of people that say they do it a different way. But 2 weeks I usually find is enough to dry them. And then they go into my garage. Now my garage is dark, cool, dry. So they carry on effectively drying in there. But they're not getting heat or anything like that either. Anybody else? Anybody else? Quickly, we've got 4 minutes to go. Anybody else have any other techniques or anything else that they do for harvesting their onions, their shallots, or their garlic? I've thrown the garlic in because they all seem to go together. In fact, we did have a picture of somebody harvesting some garlic in the onions, sorry, in the photos today, didn't we? Let's see if we can bring that up. Which one was it? Was it this one? No, it wasn't that one. There we go. Some of these harvested onions, small onions. They might be the silver skin onions, thinking about it. So good for pickling. But you know what? I quite like small onions. I think they are great for pickling. We do try and pickle quite a few onions when we can. It takes forever to prepare them, peeling them, salting them, and then putting them in the vinegar. But boy, are they worth it. Boy, are they worth it. They taste so much better than anything you can buy. Pickled onions, pickled gherkins, etc., etc. Well, we have got about 3 minutes to go before the end of this show, probably just slightly less than that. So we are going to start wrapping up. Like I said, next week we are talking about what you're harvesting and growing now. So get prepared for that. Jenny says, I've been looking at onion seeds, so many varieties, any recommendation? So my recommendation is not to grow from seed. I prefer to grow from sets. Purely for my reason, or my perspective, is that I feel the sets are a lot more reliable. You tend to get more guaranteed growth from an onion set compared to an onion seed. And two, they're less fiddly. Onion seeds are pretty fiddly to try and sow and use. So I would go for sets. Highly recommend Radar if you're going for autumn. And Graham says Zabroon shallots are a good one. Good choice. Yeah, Zabroon. Good choice for shallots. If you're growing shallots, that is. Shallots are definitely something I would recommend you grow because they store so much better and easier than onions and longer. What are that? Electric red onions. Are they red? I'm sure they are. Red, they're a good one as well. I quite like those. But they are autumn sown usually. What's the other one? It's on the tip. I think Bedfordshire Champion. They're a good one to sow Christmas time. Yeah. That's where I'm at. So well done, Richard. You can go and call off now. See you all next week. If you can suggest somewhere to call off other than the beach, I'll be all ears. Beatrice says, thanks everyone for great info tonight. Thank you indeed. It has been a good show. It has been rather good to hear everyone's thoughts on pruning. It's all about sharing everyone else's tips and sharing everyone else's knowledge. So that's what I am all about. I've done banana shallots, but I wanted to boost my stored veg. Yeah. Look at onion sets. Is what I would say. Hi, thank you for the live stream. Lots of great information from everyone. And Ian says, thanks, Richard. Bye all. It is 7:30, so I'm going to wrap this up. It was a bit of a drag towards the end, I know, but we got there. I'm going to start setting myself up. We're going to be back again next Sunday, where we're going to be talking about what we are growing now, what we are harvesting now, etc., etc. On the podcast tomorrow, growing in pots. You hear about that, and from this new company called Green Smart, who produce some rather interesting pots. So please take care, guys. Please make sure you drink plenty of water, stay cool, don't overexert yourself. The garden will still be there when it is cooler. And I hope to see you all again next Sunday, 6 p.m. And we'll do it all again. Bye, guys. Take care. Cheers.